what is happiness, really? I mean, it's a question we all think about, isn't it? We
Right.
spend our lives pretty much trying to find it, trying to avoid
Mm.
suffering. But what if there's this huge, almost cosmic scale of happiness? And, what most of us feel day to day is actually like the lowest level.
That's a fascinating thought.
Well, today we're doing a deep dive into exactly that. We're looking at a really profound teaching from Thailand. It's a Dhammigatha from 1954 by Luang Pu Wat Paknam. It's called 44 Kinds of Happiness That Beings Wish For.
A classic text.
Yeah, and it's not just philosophy. It's like a detailed map offering this, well, maybe surprising look at what true lasting happiness might actually be.
Right.
So our mission today is really to unpack the core message here. This idea that we can, and the text says we should let go of what it calls lesser happiness to get to an abundant happiness.
There's that powerful Pali saying they use too.
Exactly. Marasukha parikaga paseshe vipulam sukham. Which means, if a person sees a greater happiness after relinquishing the trifling happiness, the wise one should let go of the trifling happiness. So we'll explore these levels, why they matter, and, how someone might actually reach the highest form.
It makes sense. I mean, if you just look around, every living thing, really humans, lay people, monks, nuns, even animals,
Yeah.
we're all constantly seeking some kind of happiness, right? And trying to get away from suffering.
It's fundamental.
It really is. It's a basic drive.
And this ancient text actually says this idea, this pursuit, comes from the great Lord Buddha himself. He wanted us to aim higher, to seek a greater happiness, not settle for less, to let go of the small stuff for the bigger picture.
And what's really key here is how you seek it. That determines the kind of happiness you actually find. If you don't know the right way, you just end up with, well, the trifling stuff, not the greater happiness the teaching says humans can achieve.
Okay, let's unpack that then. What exactly does this text mean by trifling or lesser happiness? What are we supposed to be letting go of?
Well, the source defines it as something incredibly short-lived, really fleeting. It compares it to, like, the time it takes to clap your hands,
Wow, that quick.
or a hen fluttering its wings. Basically, it's talking about the kind of happiness we often chase in the human world, those temporary pleasures.
So it's not just happiness in general, but specific types of pleasure. The text lists 5, starting with pleasure in visible objects.
That's the first one, yeah. Things like wealth, money, silver, gold. What the text calls visible prosperity.
Yeah.
Getting pleasure from those things is pleasure in the visual.
Okay, makes sense.
And then there's pleasure in audible objects, so sounds,
Mm-hmm.
like hearing praise, admiration, flattery, things people often crave.
Oh, yeah.
But the text warns if you get attached to that praise, it ties you to suffering.
Yeah.
It actually stops you from reaching supreme happiness. A really stark warning.
Then there's olfactory objects, smells.
Right. Enjoying pleasant scents and fragrances, things that refresh you, but becoming obsessed with them, that also ties you down to the sensual plane. The text uses this image of someone weighed down, unable to lift their head.
And tastes, too.
Yes, pleasure and taste. Obsessing over sour, sweet, crunchy, salty, whatever it is. That kind of attachment means you can't, as the text puts it, hold one's head high.
And the last one is contact, physical touch.
Exactly. Enjoyment from physical touch or, being contacted. The source is quite blunt here, saying this can lead you to be low down as if living in the mud. Basically, stuck.
So these 5 sensory pleasures, they sound like the main culprits keeping us stuck, according to this teaching.
They really are. And the key insight isn't just that they're temporary. The text describes them as actual chains. They link us to these cycles of existence. Kamavada, the cycle of actions.
Right.
Vipakavada, the cycle of results. And Kilesavada, the cycle of defilements or mental impurities. So no matter how good they feel in the moment, they fundamentally limit our freedom. They make it impossible to get out of these cycles, to escape the sensual plane.
And human happiness is limited anyway, right? In time.
Exactly. That's another point they stress. It's short. Maybe 100 years, the text says, often less.
So it's the quality, the binding nature, and the short duration that makes them lesser. Which, okay, leads us to the big question. If these fleeting things aren't the answer, what is? What's the path forward?
Well, the text doesn't just leave you hanging there. It lays out a very clear path. It involves 3 crucial practices building on each other.
Okay, what are they?
It starts with giving, then moves to ethical behavior, and finally culminates in meditation. That's the progression for how supreme happiness comes about.
Right, let's start with Dana. Giving, charity. What does that look like according to the text? It mentions giving wealth, possessions.
Wealth, money, Possessions, things you earned, saved, inherited, whether they're living things or inanimate objects. Giving is seen as profoundly important.
Why so important?
Well, the text actually says it's the reason humans experience happiness in this world at all. It's called a perfection, something even the bodhisattvas pursued intensely.
Wow.
And it states very clearly that supreme happiness just isn't possible without the results, the merit that comes from giving. Having wealth might let you give more, sure, but the act itself is key, regardless of your means. This merit is what leads to rebirth in the heavens, the 6 levels of Kamavakara, bringing greater and greater happiness.
Okay, so giving builds a foundation. What about the second one? Sila, ethical behavior.
Sila is about guarding your actions, your body, and your speech, keeping them well-ordered, blameless.
And the benefit.
Observing these precepts, this self-discipline, brings its own pure merit. And the text says it leads to a specific outcome, being born in Akaṇḍa. That's the 16th Brahma realm. So a big step up.
Higher than the heavens we just mentioned.
Much higher, yes. A different plane of existence altogether.
And the third practice, Bhavana, meditation.
Bhavana, the merit from meditation. This is presented as the practice that leads directly to the ultimate goal, Nibbana, which is also called amatafalo, the deathless state, the supreme happiness.
So it's a clear ladder. Dhoni gets you to heaven, Sila to the Brahma realms, and Bhavana straight to Nibbana.
Exactly. Each one builds on the previous one.
This is where it starts getting really mind-bending for me. The text describes this escalating scale of happiness, but then says even the joys of these higher realms are still considered trifling compared to the final goal.
That's right. It's a cosmic ladder, like you said, but the instruction at every step is to keep climbing, to let go of the happiness of that level to reach the next.
So first, lowest is human happiness, then the 6 levels of heaven, the Kamavakara, realms like Katumaharjika, Tapatimsa.
Yes, those are celestial realms. The happiness there is way beyond human happiness, but, and this is crucial, it's still tied to sense pleasures ultimately, and it's temporary. The text explicitly says you should abstain from getting attached even to that.
So even heavenly bliss, the kind of thing people dream of, is still considered lesser in this framework. That really reframes things. It's not just letting go of bad stuff, but letting go of what seems like ultimate good.
Precisely. And it goes further. Beyond the heavens are the 16 levels of Brahma, the form realm, Rupa Brahma. You progress through realms like Parasaja Brahma all the way up to Vihafla. The happiness here lasts for unbelievable lengths of time, like 500 Mahagalapas. That's a cosmic age, almost impossible to imagine.
Eons, basically.
Right. But even then, the text says, still small, not true happiness, fake. You're still meant to abstain from becoming attached to it.
Wow, fake happiness that lasts for eons. That really forces you to ask, what on earth is real, lasting happiness then?
Exactly. And there's more. Even higher are the 4 formless realms, the Rupa Brahma. These are realms of pure consciousness, like Akasanakayatana, infinite space, or Nibbasahana Sahayatana, neither perception nor non-perception.
Even more abstract.
Very abstract. Happiness here lasts even longer, maybe up to 1,000 Mahagalapas. But the text is crystal clear. Still, not nirvana.
So let me get this straight. You go from human happiness through 6 heavens, 16 Brahma realms, 4 formless realms. Happiness increasing massively at each stage, lasting for cosmic timescales.
Right.
And all of it, even happiness lasting 84,000 Mahagalapas across all those planes, is still called trifling happiness, not the abundant happiness.
That's the teaching. It sets an incredibly high standard for what ultimate true happiness really is. It's clearly beyond any kind of pleasure or blissful state we can easily conceive of.
Okay, so after mapping out all these levels of happiness that you're supposed to relinquish, then the text gets to the method for reaching the real deal, Nibbana. It talks about stilling the mind.
Yes, this is where the practical instruction comes in. It's described as a very precise process. It starts by stopping the mind. Not just quieting it, but stopping it, at the very middle of the sphere that makes the human body possible. It's a specific focal point. And when the mind stops there, that's when you find true happiness. They use the Pali phrase, nati sanparam sukham.
Meaning?
No other happiness is greater than stillness. The stillness isn't just calmness, it's the gateway. It leads to pathamamaga, the first path of enlightenment, and gaining these profound insights or spheres. Things like experiencing pure sila, samadhi, panna, wisdom, vimutti, liberation, and vimutti jnanadasana, the direct knowledge and vision of that liberation.
And this isn't just a single event, right? You mentioned a journey through different bodies.
That's right. It's a progression. You start in the human body, then attain a refined human body, then a coarse celestial body, Dhammakaya, then a refined celestial body, then coarse Rupa Brahma body, refined Rupa Brahma body, then coarse Arupa Brahma body, refined Arupa Brahma body. It's like peeling layers of an onion, getting subtler and subtler.
At each stage.
At each stage, you have to attain those same spheres, Sila, Samadhi, Panna, etc., within that specific body. And then this is crucial. You have to relinquish the happiness of that refined body to move to the next coarser body of the higher plane.
So it's always attain, experience the happiness, then let go to move higher. Even letting go of these increasingly sublime states, where does it end?
It culminates in reaching the Dhammakaya, the body of Dhamma, or truth body. First coarse, then refined. This is where the text says you find happiness on top of happiness, the real higher happiness.
But even that's not the absolute end.
Not quite. The journey continues through even more refined stages, linked to the classic 4 stages of enlightenment. You attain the Soda body, stream enterer, coarse and refined, then the Sakadagami, once returner body, coarse and refined, then the Anagami non-returner body, coarse and refined, and finally the Arahant, the fully awakened one, body, coarse and refined, and even more refined Arahant bodies beyond that.
Wow.
This ultimate happiness is described as completely free from worldly taint, totally detached. It's called Viragatu and Viragahama, the element and the quality of dispassion, of ultimate freedom.
It sounds incredibly deep, incredibly precise. And the text connects this to actual practice, right?
Yeah.
At Wat Paknam.
Yes, it references the practice there, cultivating this, stilling the mind. The path known as Vijja Samadhi Vipassana. It's about stopping without turning back, experiencing this measureless happiness that, as the source admits, is really hard to explain in words.
It has to be experienced.
Exactly. It's beyond concepts. It's a fundamental transformation.
So we've really covered an amazing map of happiness today. From the most fleeting human joys all the way to this immeasurable stillness of Nibbana. And the core message seems so clear. Real supreme happiness isn't about getting more stuff, more pleasure. It's about skillfully letting go of what's lesser, again and again.
And the teaching suggests that just understanding this map, this journey, helps you see the real worth of being born human, especially within the context of these teachings. It's about recognizing the truth of it and not squandering the opportunity you have.
A potential.
The potential, yes.
Yeah.
The text implies you have the wisdom inside you already to compose great qualifications into oneself, as it puts it.
So here's a final thought to leave everyone with. If this path to the absolute highest happiness involves constantly letting go of even greater and greater forms of happiness, heavenly bliss, Brahma bliss as you ascend, what does that really tell us about our own everyday attachments, our small joys, our big ambitions? What might that absolute stillness truly mean for your life? And what kind of freedom could possibly lie beyond all the forms of happiness we usually think of?